Is it a steep mountain stone for a ghost? Or is a crumbled crack a hidden road? Reaching back with a restless mind. It is only time we leave behind.
All right. That was Blood Bark. Time is nothing. All right, what's good? I had to try and do something here. Hopefully everything holds up with the computer and I don't have any funky crashes that ruin a thing or two. Um and I'm going to slowly go through this book because also I do have to make time to finish reading Children of Dune, because then eventually I've got to read the other three of Frank's work in the series. And from what I'm told, I don't really have to go past Frank's work to get the gist of it all. Anyway, so I wanted to tackle something not too heavy, but also something that is part of my understanding of various required occult literature for anybody who would take themselves seriously in this field. So we have the Book of Abremelin. All right, let me see. Properties. No, that's not right. Wait a minute. Oh, here we go. This one. Properties. There it is. Excellent. Let's bring this up to size. All right. Grab it. Have to grab it just right, you bastards. Come on. All right, there we go. The Book of Abremelin. Let's see how that all frames up in here. Everything's on page. I think we're good. Let down a little bit. Yeah. And this is a good one because it's got Lon Milo DuQuette's forward in it. Our Magus in the Media, Brady, he just had Milo on his show. Shout out Magus in the Media. So I'm going with this one, and I think I can trust Lon Milo DuQuette's work. So this is the Book of Abremelin, a new translation, being a complete and modern translation from various extant manuscripts, including a previously unpublished fourth part. Abraham von Worms, compiled and edited by George Den, translated by Stephen Guth, and forward by Lon Milo DuQuette. All right. We're just going to go ahead and pass some of this stuff. Ibis Press. All right. Now is this long? There's a little bit of stuff in the forwarding of it here. No, okay. I don't want to take too much time on all of this stuff, but I do want to glean over it. You can pause and read all this if you want. Right? Here I am on page per page. US $45. All right. Okay. Nice shot of the leather cover. You got hold on a second. I want to remember. Is this supposed to be? Okay. Right. So the way this thing is, in the presenter on the Internet Archive, before you download it, it's got the book flipping graphic, and so you would see 2 pages at a time, and this would be 1 page, right? And so this is a map that is holding up the world. Let me bring this back up to magnification. There we go. And so you have, as you can see, there's a lot more than 4 winds over here. India, that's the Ganges, that must be the Ganges River, or Ganges River. I think that's what that's trying to say. That might be Ethiopia over there. Anglia, maybe that's England up here. Ifrana. Yeah, it probably is. Yeah. This is probably North Africa. That's probably Europe. Yeah, that's probably supposed to be Italy right there. Okay, cool. All right. So we got an idea of what we're supposed to be looking at. We don't have translation written here as such. Title page from the Worms Synagogue Mashor prayer book. As the Rabbi Yaakov ben Moses Ha Levi Moylin, better known as Machril, Abraham would have held this book in his hands. The original 13th century book is in Jerusalem. An exact copy is in the city archives of Worms, Germany. Okay. Translation copyright 2006 for this version. All right. So then here's our chapters and what's and whatnot. And so this is like 4 books in one. It's 300, little less than 300 pages when you consider that we're 14 pages into 307. So it's a little shorter than 300 pages. References for illustrations in the book. Okay. All right, here's the foreword. We're going to kick things off with the foreword because it was written by Lon. The unredeemed spirit and their followers, their works and all their doings, be their unrelenting enemy and try throughout your life to command them and never to serve them. Abraham of Worms to his son Lamech. Book 3, page 149. Hey, what's up, young stitches? As a young student of the Western mysteries, I was thoroughly enchanted by stories of the celebrated magicians of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. The dramatis personae of this modern myth could not have been more colorful. The dashing young Irish poet William Butler Yeats, the beautiful actress Florence Farr, the fabulous wealthy T. Eris Ann Horniman, and the brilliant Magus McGregor Mathers. And let's not forget the devilishly naughty Aleister Crowley as backdrop to this tale. What more romantic milieu could we ask than the Holmes and Watkins-esque world of the late Victorian London, here in the fog-shrouded capital of the empire upon which the sun never set, at a moment in time when the Industrial Revolution, Darwin and Marx, were eroding the tired soil of 2,000 years of human history and hurling the world forward into uncertainty. These modern Merlins were occupying their free evenings, plunging backwards into the distant mythological past on a quest for illumination and magical power. So you have this juxtaposed backdrop for the time in which this book about Abremelin was written, being mused upon by those today who were going back into this translation of it. So, an important cast member of this drama, however, was not a person, but a book, an ancient book of magic, penned in German between 1387 and 1427 by a German Jew known as Abraham of Worms, originally titled Book Abremelin. A 1750 French translation of the text rested virtually undisturbed in the Bibliothèque de l'Arsenal in Paris, 1893, when it was translated into English by Samuel L. MacGregor Mathers, who subsequently published his translation in England as the Book of the Sacred Magic of Abremelin the Mage, as delivered by Abraham the Jew unto his son Lamech, a grimoire of the 15th century. This book would have a profound impact on the world of Western occultism and elevate the oft denigrated art of spirit evocation to a status equal to the sacred spiritual sciences of the East. And how's it going, Intergalactic Boo? The feature that sets the sacred magic apart from the contemporary grimoire, some of which oblige would-be magicians to embark upon scavenger hunts for the bat blood and body parts of the exotic amphibia, is a doctrine that states, please allow me to paraphrase, that in order to wield godlike magical powers, the magician must actually be possessed of godlike virtues of character. This is not to argue that it is impossible to reprobate magicians by memorizing and following certain recipes or formulaic magic to temporarily bamboozle the unredeemed spirits to obedience, but it is a tenuous ability at best. First of all, unenlightened magi are not possessed of sufficient clarity of vision to determine whether or not their desires and actions are in harmony with their own best interests. Second, the spirit, who apparently have eternal season tickets to every performance of Faust and Don Giovanni, inevitably ferret out the chink in the moral armor of the magician and amplify and exploit these weaknesses in order to extricate themselves from the magician's control. On the other hand, the magician who has gained a significant level of spiritual illumination and self-realization is qualified by virtue of who he or she is to safely summon and wisely command the spirit and put their potentially dangerous powers to use towards more noble ends. While portions of Abraham's book are concerned with classic formula, recipes, and magic squares, he makes it clear that these devices are tools to be used only after the magician has undergone a profound and personal spiritual transfiguration. The centerpiece of the book deals with the transcendent experience, outlining in exacting detail a step-by-step procedure whereby the magician, after months, hold on a moment, almost, one sec, let me pull that down a pinch, that, good, okay. The exact nature of the holy guardian angel defies proper definition. The book makes it clear, however, it is the divine entity uniquely linked to each individual, in essence, the magician's personal spiritual soulmate. Another way of looking at this relationship would be for us to consider the magician as being a spiritually incomplete human, a unit until united with the holy guardian angel, and to consider the holy guardian angel as being a spiritually incomplete angelic unit until it has become one with the magician. And we've seen this trope in many kinds of different things, in shadow work and egregores, higher self-integrations, yada yada yada. If you've been paying attention to anything I have been sharing with you about the psychosomatic northern soul complex and the 9 parts of the human soul that have 3 grouping divisions of 3, so it's a 3 by 3 matrix. in this system. Yeah, your guardian angel, which is like kind of like your main spirit guide guy. There's various different names for it across every traditions. Is one of seven other things that converge upon the focal point of you and the you-ness of your being. The concept of a personal guardian, spirit, or angel who must be acknowledged or placated before one begins to operate is nothing new to the traditions of Western magic. The concept of the holy guardian angel, as presented in the Abremelin operation, however, goes far beyond an obligatory toast to the good angels or a quick prayer for God's blessing before conjuring demons. The lengthy and increasingly intense preparation ceremony is a serious and arduous regimen that ruthlessly pushes the magician month by month towards a single pointed passion for the angel. The operation is crowned by a supreme invocation and ecstatic consummation of the divine marriage. Now, remember, what's going to be interesting about you listening to me talking about this stuff is that even with angels, especially if we're getting past personal guardian angels and we're talking about other kinds of spirits and things like that, this study is for an understanding of the mechanical principles of how things work. And with the exception of what is part of your psychosomatic soul complex, you are not making contract with anything. You are not calling anything else. Okay? Regardless of whether this book espouses to that or not. And then we'll talk about what I would ask instead or do instead. If I don't know what to do, I will know what to ask. And that's what makes the difference when you're reading a book going into it blind on many things, as I am, showing you this particular kind of way of real-time study as we do our little book club study group thing on this channel. Students of the Eastern mysticism will at once recognize this part of the ceremony as being very similar to that of the bhakti yogi who achieves ecstatic union with his or her deity by means of focused love and devotion. The Abremelin operation, however, does not stop here. In order for the magician's consciousness to be a worthy eidolon of the divine, it might thoroughly reflect not only the highest heavens, but also the lowest hells. For 3 days after the supreme invocation, the magician remains locked in blissful intimacy with the angel as his consciousness melds with that of the angel and his metamorphosis becomes complete. Then and only then, guided by the omniscient wisdom of the angel, the magician systematically conjures to visible appearance. Hey, what's up, Decorial? Conjures to visible appearance each and every unredeemed spirit of the infernal regions. One by one, in order of their rank in the hierarchy of hell, the magician compels the unredeemed spirits to confess their subservience and swear complete and unconditional obedience. After all, this has occurred in the magician ready to safely use the magical square in the book, in the back of the book. The systematic, almost scientific approach of the Abremelin method, appealing instantly to the late 19th century esotericists. The few volumes of the first edition of the Mather's translation were immediately snatched up by the members of the Golden Dawn and other interested parties, many of whom were naturally more interested in the theoretical aspects of the work than actually performing the operation. Still, its reputation as a bona fide magic book, rather than merely a book about magic, soon spread, and with it the dark notion that because the book revealed the secrets of how to conquer the world's evil spirits, then the evil spirits would do anything to keep this knowledge from the world. Rumors spread that the sacred magic of Abremelin the Mage was a sorcerer's handbook, that it was dangerous to even have a copy in one's home. Sadly, from almost the moment of its publication, the bright glories of this marvelous and unique document were eclipsed by the most ridiculous fears and superstitions. I confess, in 1976, when I first ran across a copy in a used bookstore in Hollywood, my hand actually shook as I pulled it from its place on the dusty shelf. Fearing demonic attack, I very cautiously drove home and tucked it away in a black borrowed slipcase and kept it apart from my other books. Not wishing to take responsibility for the unspeakable evils that might befall them, I refused to loan it or even show it to the curious friend. Today, I feel pretty silly about the whole thing, especially considering the fact that the book that caused me to quake in my boots and lose friends, the book that established Mather's reputation and caused such a supernatural uproar over 100 years ago, was itself so incomplete and dissimilar to the original German text as to be almost worthless as an accurate rendering of the content and intent of the original documents. This is not to say that Mather's sacred magic is not a valuable contribution to the library of Western magical literature, or to suggest that he did a poor job translating the 1750 French manuscript into proper English. On the contrary, experts tell us Mathers did a wonderful job. The problem rests with the woefully incomplete and doubtful French text from which he worked. All right, let me see here. So I don't need to know about all these technical details. Book 3 in the Mathers translation. All right. Young U.S. Army. Just a Steak of the Square, held on the magical imagination of the Golden Dawn era magicians. One can only imagine what they might have thought if they knew that virtually none of the information concerning the magic squares in the Mathers translation agrees with that found in the original German manuscripts. For instance, there are 242 squares in Mathers edition. Okay, so, all right, stipulation stuff. All right. I realize it may appear that I'm being unduly hard on poor Mathers. That is certainly not my intention. I have the highest regard for this great magical genius whose work continues to enlighten and inspire new generations of serious students of the Western mysteries. We owe him an immeasurable debt. Our focus should be not on what his translation was not. Rather, we should celebrate what the new Dan Guth translation is, an elegant and accurate exposition of an ancient and artful technique for self-realization and self-initiation. I, for one, welcome this important and highly readable edition of the book that is once again destined to make a profound impact on the world of Western occultism. Lon Milo Duquette. All right. George and I did all our translations by working through a spoken language he read, the German, aloud as I translated into English. We sensed the spiritual world participating with our work. I tried to retain in the English text the spiritual insights often alluded to rather than stated in the German original. My background in several spiritual traditions has helped me enormously in this respect. Abraham's surviving manuscripts are all written in German without useful paragraphs or punctuation. We have added these. Book 1 is relatively easy to understand, and I have taken the liberty of retaining much of its original tone, that of a letter from a Jewish father to his son. The other books have been translated straightforwardly with modern word usage to improve their readability. We puzzle over the best translation of several German words, which were often archaic. Two worth mentioning are and Bosgeister. The usual English translation of in this context is Lord. We felt that this translation creates spiritual, social, and political connotations in the mind of the English reader that are not what Abraham intended. We settle on Adonai as having the closest tone to the original. This issue is expanded upon in introductions. Right, so Herr, like, uh, like, shoot. In German, you hear the word Herr in certain ways. And, I can't bring up what I remember about German right now. Especially because I might mix it up with stuff that I think I know about Old Norse, and I know Old Norse better than the German, so let me not speak foolishly. Okay. We notice by observing the context that when Abraham wrote Bos Geister, he meant that anthro anthroposophical literature would call unredeemed spirits trapped or lost spirits rather than directly destructive or manifestly evil entities. The more literal translation of Bos into the English evil we felt, create a feeling in modern Christian readers that Abraham, a Jew from the Middle Ages, would not have shared, so we have used unredeemed spirits, which suggests that Abraham's art is indeed, as he says, proper and correct. Yeah, I think so. Like because like we use like Frey and Freya, which are earth gods that their names mean lord and lady, right? So there's a lordship element with that for people who worship as such, right? And thus the titles come in respects to how some of these have come forward in that respect. So in that sense, it's like how do they talk about like Fräulein, Freu, and you know, like someone saying that to a woman. It's, I believe in German that's that term of endearment, and it's Freu is like Freya. So it's saying fair maiden, fair lady. Yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah, unredeemed spirits. Yeah. I get exactly what he means by that. Right? Because you're trying to basically kind of you're trying to put a secular vernacular on the translation and explaining why you're going for that in context to what people understand in the English of the time that this is published, which is 2006. All right, how long is this introduction? All right, I don't want to go through the introduction. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We went through all that. Before we get started, I sincerely want to I want to take a break, and then after the break, we're gonna get into it. So let me see here. Let me see where am I gonna find a song real fast? I went for like an 8-minute intro song. I don't want to get more like that. I want to cut it down a bit. And I'm getting lots of long songs right here. All right, let me pull back a second. Oh, why'd you go that way? Come on. Nope, that's what I was listening to. Oh, that's why. Okay. 1 second. Just I don't know, some, black metal. How original. Steve's gonna play black metal. Yeah. I get it. All right. Just trying to see if I can find anything it just off the top just sounds thematically like what we're doing with this book, because it's always fun when I can make it make sense. Trying to stay under 6 minutes here. No. Maybe. No. I have no idea if that one's going to be good. Cataclysm. Do I want to do Cataclysm? Not really. Yeah, fine. We'll do Cataclysm.
The world burns. Nothing survives.
All right, so I grabbed that one real fast because I was hoping it was. I don't think that was the band Cataclysm, but I think somebody just happened to name their thing Cataclysm. And I think that might have been AI. So so my apologies to performing musicians that record things. But that sounded really good, though. I am 99% Butlerian Jihad, right? But, I got to give credit where credit's due. At the end of the day, the AI is mostly going to suck because you sat there and said, yep, I'll take that one, and I'm going to accept that as good work from AI, right? Like, everything you see that pops up from AI, every cringy, sloppy, whatever, somebody sat there and said, that's the best I can talk to AI to make it look right. I'm putting it up, right? And then they just stop trying to make it fucking look real. Right? That kind of thing. But anyway, so I've concerned Nick Oracle that I am an imposter because it does not fathomly compute that I am here right now doing my thing, and nobody can see my chest at all. So this I sympathize with these upsetting circumstances, and I've decided to alleviate the problem and give Nico complete peace of mind that I am indeed Zerilath Eternal by showing proof of nipples. There we go. All right, we're all feeling better now. Okay. Excuse me. Opening Hymn 1. There was a conjunction of Neptune and Pluto in Gemini. From 1398 to 1404, these two slow planets rarely meet, roughly every 500 years. The conflict within the sign of Gemini lies in its hesitancy and tendency to drift into a kind of helplessness. If the occult powers of these outer planets are cultivated in personal discipline, they are useful for developing consciousness, research, discovery in all kinds of fields, new theories, visionary recognition for collective transformation. Very interesting. All right. I'm just trying to think. So yeah, so that's all just talking about those two and Gemini. And yeah, for me, Gemini is, I got Venus in Gemini. So I get affected by those conjunctions or those transits. But anyway. If the occult powers of these outer planets are cultivated personal discipline, they're useful to conscious research of all kinds of fields and theories, visions, formations. All right, so on the same time, between 1398 and 1399, Saturn and Uranus formed a conjunction in Sagittarius. This indicates a rational or a spiritual period of alertness, communication, and innovation. Power issues should be set aside in such a climate, or else divorce, like the schism of the Catholic Church, will ensue. If spirituality is subordinated to claims of power, abuse is sure to follow. Abraham von Worms lived in one of the darkest chapters of Jewish history in Germany, the year of the plague and subsequent pogrom of 1349. Buddy, calm down, just be patient. The worst is yet to come. Anyway, was only a few years before. Can you imagine writing that statement before the Holocaust? We can talk about the Holocaust here, but I'm just saying, when, in the world where you believe the Holocaust was entirely on the level, right? Not denying that the Holocaust, I'm not denying that Jews suffered in concentration camps. There's obvious evidence of it, right? But the aspects of this story that are a lie have to be discussed. But not today. But I did have to bring it up just because you have to think about that kind of stuff. Because also, this is a manner of, like, you know, the Jews as a people have this very, very unique history, which is sadly also connected to, you know, your religion, but you also converted to the religion and then adopted the legacy of the tribe. You see, I think that's where you went wrong, right? It's fine. You wanted to kind of have this whole fucking thing and live on some level of, you know, the Torah and the Talmud and the Zohar and all that. But if you're not even like a Semitic people, like, isn't it just like you're, like, to them at best you're a Gentile LARPing? But who is them anyway? Like, like, even the high bloodline guys are going back to these dudes, like, we're talking about Josephus and all this stuff, right? And, you know, it's like you look at this stuff and it's a hard conversation because you don't want to be so insulting. And especially because of the many Jews that, you know, they get emotional and are definitely politically charged people, you know, when it comes to making all of these assertions that, you know, that their entire fucking history is not necessarily something that they are blood-bound relationship with, right? That's effectively what we're saying. It's like, you don't have a blood obligation to anything. Like, you can choose to not inherit one goddamn thing of this, right? Like, that's okay. You have leadership that wants you to be held by that standard for the perks by which they want you held by that standard that serves their interests, which may or may not be nefarious depending on how much they actually want you for the global Zionist domination issue and espousing the vampire cult ball Lilith. It's this whole thing. It's this whole fucking thing. But anyway, okay, so that's enough of me being an atypical fucking, like, white guy getting hung up on stuff. All Jews are welcome. And I'm not just gonna fucking drop my interview with Justin Sledge to, like, prove a point. I'm also gonna drop my interview with Emily Moyer to prove a point. Okay, but anyway, the period was marked by the bad situation of the rural population, the Peasants' Rebellion in Worms in 1431 on one hand, and the flowering of the city's trades and crafts on the other hand. Yeah, man, the 14th century was kind of a rad time in certain places. I think you're getting into, like, the Florentine Renaissance period at that point. It's just like, you know, like, put me there. Put me in France in the Renaissance period. Or France or Italy in the Renaissance period. That'll probably make sense to my fucking line. But anyway, in the second half of the 14th century, humanism was founded in Italy at the beginning of the 15th century. The Renaissance started. The 1380s and 1390s saw the foundation of the universities of Heidelberg, Cologne, and Erfurt. The Western Schism of the Church creates antipopes as well as different reformers like John Wycliffe, 1330-1384, and John Hus, 1371-1415. Germany was ruled by the Luxembourgs. Abraham's story is a mirror of the time as an emancipated Jew, he is a consultant to church principals and politicians. As a man of his time involved in its development, he lives in two worlds. Jewishness, its mentality and way of life, is not as assimilated with the population as it will be in the 18th to 20th centuries. Abraham anticipated the progress of social learning and the emancipation. It is self-evident for him to write in German, the common language for the Jewish books. 1 and 3 show no hint of translation from Hebrew. Book 4, as the occult part of his inheritance, show evidently Hebrew roots, but not exclusively. Book 2 contains customs that have been handed down in all parts, including Christian of society. You're welcome. I have investigated Abraham's time primarily for biographical reasons, and while doing so, I discovered a contemporary whose picture of life or biography was very parallel to Abram's. I realized then that they were one and the same person. Against the backdrop of those times, it is easy to see how someone of that function and education or skill could have led two different lives and built up two different identities. This man, who used the name Abraham von Worms as a pseudonym, was Rabbi Jacob ben Moses ha Levi Molian the Maharil. In the following, it may be possible to show symbolically which karmic consequences our Jewish scholars survived, never mind whether it was conscious or unconscious. 2. It is the time of the 100 Years' War in France. Upon the stage of world history appears the Virgin, who turns into the tool of archangels, principalities, and powers. The three celestial hierarchies, despite that blind humankind, makes her a martyr. Giles Dere, Joan of Arc, captain, was born in 1404. His father died in 1415. Two important data show synchronicity with Abraham's data. Additionally, two contemporaries without any obvious connection except a shared interest in Abraham's story also encountered de res Joris Carl Huysman and Aleister Crowley. Galceres is accused of performing magical rituals. He confesses, embellishes them, shows details and atrocious delusions. The doors of hell seem to be opened in an epoch during which they couldn't be closed, because it has never been regarded as a period of transformation. Things of the spiritual planes that are symbolically put in a demonology of the underworld of the soul, which exists visually and are designed like in the Tibetan or Egyptian Book of the Dead, in the Book of the Dead names, and Necronomicon, in the painting of Hieronymus Bosch, The Devils of Abremelin, or the aberrations of the priesthood, have torn into physical reality. The hell as an element of reality was left to the carnal world. Because of that, humankind was deprived of its maturing and initiating process for centuries. Whole societies were nailed in traumata and the rigidity of fear. We see the light of the Renaissance opposing the darkness of the Inquisition. But few people nowadays comprehend how we can build the bridge over oblivion. Traumata is an awesome word. I like that. I've never seen somebody put ta at the end of trauma, and that gives it such an interesting character. Societies were nailed in traumata. Like, I don't know if I would use the word nailed. I would find a different word that flows with nailed. But to see, society in the traumata, the rigidity of fear. You see, my mind has been meditating much, contemplating much, and kind of tapping into my intuitive third eye on the concept in our Norse mythos of Naglfar, Loki's chariot, as it's also called. this ship, which is made out of like the nails and the teeth. I think there was teeth, right? It's a lot of the toe and fingernails of people that are clinging on to it. And these clingers are those who have become the Draugr, those of the undead. It's the herald of the undead horde. And these are those preconditions, because these are the preconditions put into man that were being primed during the height of what I call playtime. Playtime being effectively, leisure culture as a whole, but the very insidious way in which we doubled down on leisure culture after 9/11. Almost like just a party and protest. Because you can't stop the party just because you killed a whole lot of us and this is serious. I gotta go shopping tomorrow. The president needs me. Right? That was America's attitude at the time, and we went through traumata and rigidity of fear while pretending everything was normal. And then we did it again in 2020. And I don't know if we've finally broken that yet. It's been 6 years since we started that fiasco. It's been 4 years since we ended the mandate process. And the world's been in a very interesting and weird place ever since. And there were certainly freedoms that came back, and then more that came back after the recent election cycle. But I'm dealing with my shit. But I also have to worry about people that haven't dealt with their shit, because people are locked out in their psyche since 2020, right? Certain choices, and not just because of medical consequences, but that is partially it. But with the shutdown of the way the world works, with the false reboot of that old world, right? People are now migrating into all sorts of new and interesting territories. But anyway, let's continue. We see the light of the Renaissance opposing the darkness of the Inquisition, but few people nowadays comprehend how we can build the bridge over oblivion. Oh, nice. Nice. Nicely written. Crowley, ever the cynic, exposed the unconscious mechanics in a shattering lecture about Gales de Res. Anger and bitterness speak out of it. However, new witches' actions are encouraging when they, for example, let Catholic priests say Mass for burnt women. That era slid into a world war. What else can one call the 30 Years' War? Today, at least, we can say what should never happen again. We retained some of the old wisdom and discovered new wisdom in an aeon that doesn't overvalue itself, and so we can realize a chance for simple living and being in harmony. It is irresponsible to mistreat history. History is full of tragic figures, and not everybody who thinks beyond the templates of his time succeed like Crowley in stirring his environment with sincere opposition. Superstition is not vanquished by any means, whether it is the still unbroken might of allopathic medicine, which evokes demons like AIDS, or the Inquisition for political power that murdered somebody like Wilhelm Reich, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and Kurt Cobain, ultimately died of modern Western society's failures to embody and respect the reality of the inner realm. This is really good stuff. It's called the opening hymn, so I thought we were in the book already because this is not the workings of somebody who lived in the 1400s. Anyway, excuse me. Gilles de Rais was not a magician. He was the anima of the Virgin of Orleans, whose courage horrified the reigning powers of Abram von Worms, the true magician, who fought his battles in the deserts of Egypt and Mount Sinai, real sites and metaphors of the unexplored inside the lonely, perhaps cosmic spaces of the soul, carried home invisible trophies and secrets and the wisdom. He withdrew himself from the grasp of history, hid his legacy as a secret inheritance in an ordinary wooden chest, where it could rest for a time, to be discovered again in a later time of transformation. This might reveal Abraham's existences in between, perhaps as a reformer or as an author of the Age of Illumination. It would thrill me to prove Pico della Mirandola's identity in our century with a wealth of indications. He could have, in our century, with a wealth of indications, he could have invented the motto, live fast, die young. No one since Jim Morrison has studied the classical poets, the alchemists, and the mythical heroes with the same enthusiasm. Or time is full of heroes from the Renaissance, and of course, such an age has its dawn again. Which, by the way, this would also tell us that whoever wrote this after the Holocaust happened and still made those statements. But anyway, without saying the words so far, or up until that point, if you will. This book is dedicated to the divine in us all, to the light and wisdom that we possess solely by the fact that we are human. Okay, this must be it. Record for my son Lamech's author's biography. Useful workings from the Blended Secret Kabbalah, formerly formulary for altering situations, accessing the gifts of Adonai, Abremelin's method of self-initiation, and the fruit of the preceding 3 books, an index for accessing and working with spirits. Kabbalah Mystica, Egyptorium et Patriarchum, par ist Bush der Weben Aten Gottliebe. Anyway, excuse me. Figure 1, title, page of, I'm assuming, Dresden Library, a possible source of the French translation which entered the English language through S.L. McGregor, Mather's Book of the Secret Magic of Abremelin. The paper and script style suggest a transcript date of about 1720. The French MS is on a similar paper and uses a similar script of the time. Library records show that no one had viewed the manuscript for 200 years. Dresden State and University Library of Saxony. Book 1. This is the book of the true practice of magical wisdom. It has been passed to me, Abraham, son of Simon, son of Judah, the son of Simon, by oral tradition. Some parts of this book have been given to me by my father and otherwise studied and practicing people. The other parts of this book contain things that I have learned, discovered, and tested by making great events occur. I have written this manuscript and placed it in a chest so that my youngest son, Lamech, will have a special treasure as his inheritance. My firstborn son, Joseph, received the holy tradition in Kabbalah from me. From this book, my second son, Lamech, will be able to see, recognize, and use the wonders of God. So this is the page of the Worm Synagogue, 13th century Jerusalem. All right. Chapter 1. All right, we're going to take another break right here. And let me see if I can find some more delightful occultish music that hopefully isn't fucking AI. Let's see. Come on, give me something. That doesn't look like black metal. Okay, hang on. I'm gonna pick one song.
Can you tell which one of us is real and which one of us is it?
All right. Hang on. All right. What we got here? We got a couple of songs. The first one is 5 minutes. All right. Let me see how much if there's an intro with this. No, it gets right into it, so let's do it. All right, we're gonna try these guys out. Morker, den sista utfärden. Nice abrupt ending. Good. All right, I like it. I like it. Okay, we're good. Killer. Let's keep it going. Welcome back, everybody. That was Morker den Sister Utfarden. And now we're really in it. Chapter 111. The reason for this inheritance. This chapter deals with the reason for this special inheritance. I shall not repeat here what will be obvious in the third book. In this book I avoid all unnecessary words. The truth does not need any long, complicated explanations. The truth is simple and straightforward. What is true is true. Worms. The city famous dragon symbol is in the foreground. The German word for dragon is worm. The illustration was made by a Jewish artist, 15th century drawing in Worms archive. So this is the worm of Worms, Germany. Ah, ain't that something? This seems to be a wingless worm. This would be this kind of I really want to say that there's a salamander vibe here because you've got this very long torso, but this is a four-legged creature, but it's very close to being like, so it's technically not a, so it's funny because it's worm-like, but it's a dragon worm, but it has no wings. So this is a flightless dragon. And if that could be possibly a salamander, like a giant salamander, there's a precedent relationship between the King of Wands, who has a salamander on his card in the Rider-Waite-Smith. And the salamander, I believe, is connected. That might be a Templar symbol. The only follow what I tell you in this book. Stay simple, remain religious, and be considerate. In this way, you will experience more good things than I can tell you about. The Holy Ghost does not give everyone the honor and duty to be able to learn and experience the important secrets of the Kabbalah, the law, and the Talmud. So you should do and enjoy what has been given to you by Adonai. You should stay with the situation into which you have been placed by the will of God. Otherwise, if you try to fly too high in your pride, could and will be led into the situation that was experienced by Lucifer and his angry associates. Adonai may send you a strong wind to throw you to the ground and break your wings so that in the future you would be frightened, fearful, and unable to fly. Which is almost like him implying, be Lucifer, but don't be the Lucifer that crosses the line, is kind of what he's saying. And I get that. It's a question of where that line can be drawn with such greater scope of wisdom, right? Because we don't live in the world where you must close yourself off into the exclusivity of one discipline, one cosmological order, right? There is the parallel frameworks across all metaphysical archetypes that from different angles all lock into place on the different points. Well, right, exactly. Worm to worm, Timony, with the O to the Y, with the O being your common kind of worm. And then a salamander is got that kind of wormy-like body. You know, it's It's a very soft, and needs to be in good hydration. To be a little bit slippery, if you will. Anyway. So remain clever and wise and correctly understand what I am telling you. Remember, because you are too young, that in this book I am spooning pabulum into your mouth. How to cook and use pabulum you will learn step by step as you grow older from good cooks, the wise masters, and yes, also the good holy angels of God. Okay. What is a pabulum? I've never heard that before. Is a noun that generally refers to food or nourishment. Okay. Definition can range from literal nutrients to food for thought, right? Decisively bland and simplistic. Right, exactly, which is how we saw him use it. Pabulum, which means food or fodder. Right. Okay, so it's a Latin word for food that also has the double meaning of thought sustenance. Substance that gives nourishment, food. Okay, so pabulum. Great. Nobody is born as a master. Everyone needs to learn and to become a master. This is what happened to me and to everyone else. Engage yourself deeply in this study and you will be rewarded with experiences. The most shameful and disgusting title is ignorant. Chapter 2, How I Learned from Others. You should also know what I learned from others to become a master. What happened is that my father Simon, shortly before he joined his father, gave me by word of mouth signs and advice about the holy secrets. He taught me as much as was correct. But he, who knows all, also knows that he gave me the mercy to fully understand enough of the holy mysteries. My father did not strive correctly towards the holy mysteries, so I did not learn the correct way to work towards the mysteries. I was an immature 20-year-old when my father died. I had happiness and joy from the mysteries of Adonai, but alone I could not find the correct path. So this is some sort of a map. This is probably the region that he lived in. Let me see. The Rhine River. Worms is in the middle. Other towns mentioned Abraham as Spire, shown as Spur on this map, and Mainz, or Mentz, and Ledenborg, print, 16th century Worms archive. Okay. Gossip told of a wise rabbi in Mainz who was full of godly wisdom and magical knowledge. I gave myself to him to learn and become wise. The rabbi had not received the full gift of mercy from Adonai. He helped me understand some of the high secrets. What he taught was not complete or satisfactory in his magical system. He followed the ideas of people who were atheists or agnostics. He used pictures from the Egyptians, herbs from the Medes, and Persians, stars and constellations from the Arabs. He took from all people and nations, even from Christians, that's all, folks. Diabolical crafts, spirits, created false mirrors, images to blind him, so he believed his efforts to be true magic. As a result, he made no further efforts to search for the real holy magic. I also believed that I had achieved the right knowledge until 10 years later when I met Abremelin, the old wise father in Egypt. He showed me the right way, which I will tell you about later. The highest mercy was given to me from the Father of kindness, the active great God, who, again and again, gave enlightenment to my mind. He opened my eyes so that I could see the holy secrets. In time, I have become able to recognize the holy angels and the good spirits. I now share their friendship and have discussion with them. They have explained to me the basis of true magic and how unredeemed spirits need to be and must be controlled. To finish, I need to say that I learned the holy secrets through Abremelin's teachings from God himself, and I learned to do the true, not false magic from the holy angels. Accurate 17th century copper etching of the Jewish section of Worms. Worms would have been very similar to Abram's time. The Jewish ghetto runs from the mains gate and bridge on the right edge of the illustration along the inside of the wall with its 4 watchtowers. Judengasse is the curved road inside the wall. You can see one entrance to the ghetto at top and end of the street. Wow, it's huge. Outside the wall is the moat, curved road that runs down to the left from the main gate is the Friedrichstrasse. At the other end of Judengasse at Berengasse is the other ghetto entrance. The synagogue is right in the center, although Judengasse and Hinterjudengasse, the Jewish school called Rashi House and Mikwe, the well for ritual washing, are between them. Sporgasse and Stungasse border the ghetto on the left. In 1689, the French burned down the town. Today, the streets remain the same as they were in Roman times, but the houses are larger. Illustrations by Peter Heyman. Worming my way in to say hi. Stephen Pythagorean. Hey, how's it going, Stephen Pythagorean? I don't think I know you. Are you a friend I have met and you changed your name? Good to meet you. Chapter 3, Countries and Lands I Visited. In the last chapter, I told you how, after my father's death, I searched for the truth and the secrets of Adonai. Now I shall tell you about the towns and countries I traveled through for the purposes of study. I do this to give you a rule and some examples so that you can organize your youth properly rather than spoil and waste it uselessly the way little girls who sit around the kitchen fire do. There is nothing more needy of criticism and worthless than general disinterest. He who does not journey does not return. He who does not have foreign experiences does not know how to organize his time and energies at home. The stay at home is like an archer painted on the wall, shooting continuously but never hitting anything. After my father's death on the 6th day of the month of Thebeth in 1379, I stayed for 4 years with our friends, brothers, and sisters. During this time, I tried to correctly understand and properly use what my father had passed on to me. When I realized that I could not do the necessary things by myself and for myself, I organized the most important of my affairs and businesses. I said farewell to all friends and moved to Mainz to be with old Rabbi Moses. Gossip had given me the hope that I would find in Mainz what I was seeking, but there was no foundation for spiritual wisdom within Rabbi Moses. I worked 4 years with him. I intended to return home believing I had learned what I needed. Then I met Samuel from Bohemia, a young man of our religion. His demeanor and behavior showed me that he traveled on the path of Adonai. I befriended him, and he confided in me that he intended to travel to Constantinople to meet his father's brother, and from there travel on to the blessed land where our fathers lived. I had an extremely strong desire to travel with him and had no peace until we made an agreement, promised, and swore to travel on together. On the 13th day of Tiyar, 1387, we made our way through Germany, Bohemia, Austria, and eventually Hungary towards Constantinople. I stayed there for 2 years, and I would have remained there if Samuel had not caught a severe illness and died. So was God's will. In my heart, I constantly wanted to keep moving and traveled on from town to town until I came to Egypt. I was there for 4 years, journeying back and forth. The more I saw and experienced, the less I liked the magic that I had learned from Rabbi Moses. From Egypt, I returned to our beloved fatherland, where I encouraged only grief, misery, and distress for a year. Then there's Thebaid. Then I met a fellow traveler who, although Christian, searched for the same as I. Hang on a second. Figure 7, map of the Nile River, showing hermitages. Thebes, modern Luxor, is in the center. The map is inaccurate, but it does show the large number of Christian saints and hermitages that are ascribed to the area. Detail from a large map printed in 1690, Bibliothèque Nationale de France, Paris. We agreed to move to the wilderness of Arabia because we had been told of the many holy hermits who lived in the area. They lived here so that they would be undisturbed in their search for their skills of their art. We searched for 5 years, but could find nothing that suited what we sought. Then a wonderful but difficult thought entered my head. I should discontinue my journey and return home so that I would find what I was searching for. I told my companion Christopher about this, but he wanted to continue his search through Arabia. We parted company. He went further into the desert, and I retraced my steps toward home. Chapter 4. I Find Abremelin. After traveling around for a time at great expense, I became depressed and decided to return home. I moved again from the Arabian desert to Palestine, to Egypt, and remained there for almost a year. I wonder why he didn't go to Israel. Oh, wait. I came to Erekai, a small place near the Nile, and again met Aaron, a very old man of our origin. Half a year before, on a previous visit, I had stayed with him. He asked me about the success of my journey and if I had found what I was searching for. I replied with a sorrowful heart, no. I told him about the experiences on my journey with so much emotion that my eyes overflowed from my frustration and pain. This touched the old man's heart, and he comforted me. He told me that while I was away, he had heard of an unusually wise man who was close to Erekai. He advised me to visit Abremelin because it appeared that the god had been touched by the desires in my heart. Okay, let's see here. I think this is more from Egypt. Yeah, it's the Nile. Okay, map of the Nile River. Can I rotate this? Hang on a second. Thank you. Map of the Nile River, north of Luxor, which is a bit off the map of the south. The map shows the complex of modern irrigation channels that branch out from the Nile. Erekai is near the top left of the map, at the lower point of the small triangle, with Farshout and Haw, Kena. The largest town on the map is on the bend in the Nile. The map is accurate with the floodplain of the Nile, but the wadis, or valleys, that run south into the barren tableland in the bottom left quadrant are not accurate. One caravan road is marked as running up a wadi from near Erekai. Perhaps this was the route that Abremelin took from Erekai to Abremelin's hermitage. The journey, he says, took 1.5 days. Map 1860, Institute of François Cairo. Okay. So he says that basically this map is mostly accurate. Now, if this map is coming from this guy in the era that he comes from, we're talking about perhaps sorry, I'm gonna say mud flood. We're talking about pre-mud flood type of conditions. Anyway. I considered that I had heard heavenly rather than human advice and was cheerful and happy. I was restless until good old Aaron found me a man who knew his way around the district, and I journeyed with this man for 1.5 days over an uninhabited stony plain until we came to a little hill on which grew bushes and trees. Here my guide informed me I would connect with my man. I asked my guide to go on, but he refused, turned around with his mule on which he was carried food and drink, and for some unknown reason immediately left me. Hey, what's up, Lucy? I knew of no other way of getting help and advice than to submit to the ultimate help and cried out his high name. He quickly heard me because as I lifted my eyes, I saw an old man approaching. His friendly greeting was in the Chaldaic language. He asked me to follow him. I did this with happiness and thanks. In this event, I recognized the high foresight of God. Very politely, he led me into the place where he lived. There I learned his name, Abremelin, and in the time also the foundation and structure of wisdom. Remains of a bathhouse in Atakai, the only remaining medieval building in the town. Editor from 1989. Damn. All right. So, this is that interesting kind of motif of, it's like, put yourself in an ordeal where you kind of go out into the world. You go out in search of a certain sage, and you get lost on your quest, and then because you did a series of correct things, while you were lost, you brought yourself to the circumstances of finding the guru, right? And now he gets to level up his game. All right, so for days without end, he spoke about the fear of God. He warned me that I needed to live an ordered life from time to time. He told me of mistakes that are easy to make because of human weakness. Later, he made it clear to me that he rejected the gaining of wealth and possessions, a thing we ceaselessly do in our towns because of nastiness and greed, things forced on us by our neighbors. Hang on one second. I just want to get a sense for the length of this chapter. Okay. 1, 2, 3 pages. Okay, good. I solemnly swore to him to alter my way of living and not to embrace the false beliefs of our society, but to live in the path and according to the rules of Adonai. I never broke this oath. This has made me appear to my friends, relatives, and other Jews as a bad and crazy person. I say to myself, let the will of God happen, and no matter what other people think, I must follow the right path. Abremelin, knowing my strong desire to learn, gave me 2 scripts. These very secret manuscripts were similar to this one which I bequeath to you. Abremelin impressed on me the need to copy them with great care. I did this and copied both books with sincerity. Abremelin asked if I had any money. I answered yes. He asked me for 10 gold guilders, which he, as an obligation to Adonai, was required to distribute as alms to 72 people. The recipients were required to pray certain psalms. So by giving him the book, what he actually did was he said, go ahead and read it, but you have to write it down. In other words, he didn't give him anything physical. He gave him a chance to read it, and his responsibility to write it down faithfully for himself. Okay. Abremelin asked if I had any money. I answered yes. He asked me for 10 gold guilders, which he, as an obligation to Adonai, was required to distribute as alms to 72 people. The recipients were required to pray certain psalms. After the Sabbath, he made his way to Attikai. He had asked me to swear that I would fast for 3 days. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and to satisfy myself with one meal a day, which should contain no blood or anything dead. He requested that I did this with exactness and not to make any mistakes. So to me, that actually sounds like you're talking about vegetarian, right? So it should have no blood or anything dead. So you can have eggs. You can have milk. Obviously, you can have like greens and nuts and things like that because they're going to use dead in a different context, and we've seen that context and discussed that just in the parlance of how things are phrased in my readings of the Talmud, right? Okay, so. He requested that I do this with exactness and not to make any mistakes. He said that to work well, it is important to start well. He advised me to repeat the 7 psalms every day during these 3 days and not to do any hard work. On the appointed day, he went off with the money that I had given him. I had everything that he had asked me to do. He returned 15 days later. On the following Tuesday, he impressed on me the need before sunrise to make with great sincerity a general confession to Adonai of my whole life. I needed to make a firm and true promise to serve and fear Adonai as I had never done before, and to wish to live and die within his holy law, and to be obedient to him. I carried out my confessions with great attention and exactness. It took until sunset on the next day. I presented myself to Abremelin, who, with a smiling face, said, "I like you like that." He led me into his room, where I took the 2 manuscripts I had copied and asked me if I truly and fearlessly searched for the holy wisdom and correct magic. I answered him that this was the reason and motive for my long and tiresome journey. I hoped to receive the mercy of Adonai. Because of my heartfelt confidence in the mercy of God, said Abremelin, I grant and give you the holy wisdom that you must discover in the way it is written in these 2 small manuscript books. Do not leave out the smallest imaginable part of their contents. Make no marginal notes or location marks on what is written. Realize that the creative artist who completed this work is the same God who made everything out of nothing. Okay, so this guy is saying that this magical manuscript, this is the kind of rabbi that would probably say, like, yeah, my forefathers of my tradition scribed, the book of Genesis and things like that, right? And like, because this guy is... Look at just how much weight this guy put on this shit, right? Because you're talking about an atonistic mindset at this time of their particular pagan god that they are making as, the god of all creation. And that there are no other gods, and yada, yada, yada. All right. You must never use, and about the gold. Okay, the 10 gold guild. I'm actually, you know what? I'm kind of glad you looked at that. I was thinking about that and I didn't worry about it. Looking into how much 10 gold guilders are, 1354. It was minted, with with Cologne, Mark of Gold, something. I don't know what this stuff is that came through with whatever you copy pasted. Mark of Gold carats, hence 3.43 grams of 0.110 troy ounce of fine gold. 11 times 10 equals 1 troy ounce. For the training, or 1/66th, which would be about $20 in US Treasury notes if they were backed by gold as per the standard we were originally meant to have. So that means he paid about $650. 60 to 60, about $65. Right? If you had 3 grams, 3.43 grams, that's almost 3.5 grams of gold. So that would be $60, $64.30, I think, is what he basically paid for this stuff. You must never use the holy wisdom to insult the high God or to do bad things against those next to you. You should tell it to no living person who you do not thoroughly know through long experience and conversation. Examine thoroughly if the person really wants to work for God or the devil. Those who you give it over to need to be carefully and exactly watched, as I have done with you. If you do differently, the recipient will have no fruits to harvest. Avoid as you would a snake selling and making a business of this knowledge. The mercy of God is given free to us without charge, and we must not in any way sell it. This true knowledge must stay within yourself and in your care for 72 years. It will not stay longer in our sect. Do not let your curiosity make you seek to understand this. Didn't they say he was 20 or something years old? So he's like going to be 92. He's going to have to do things this way until he's 92. But imagine we are so good that our sect becomes unbearable for the whole human race. Yes, even for God himself. On receiving these 2 small books, I wanted to throw myself on my knees, but Abremelin prevented me, saying we should kneel only before the face of God. I assure you that I have written these 2 books so exactly that when, after my death, you see them, you will understand my regard and respect for you. So I'm assuming that this book has those books in it. So me, just little old me, neophyte in the Temple of the White Dragon, and that's it, is now reading it in real time, publicly giving it to all sorts of people who I have never met in person, and give the benefit of the doubt as well as anyone else, right? Like, so we shall see as we go how I react to all this. I find it funny to think about it this way, as now in our era, this is just something that I do. Before I continued on my journey, I sincerely and carefully read the books. When I had difficulties or problems with the text, I would discuss them with Abremelin, who explained things to me with patience and kindness. I stayed with Abremelin for a year until I properly connected, understood, and experienced the truth. I intended to return home and put my art and what I had learned to good use. With Abremelin's fatherly blessing, a sign not only of the Christians, it was also a habit of our forefathers, I joyfully went on my way. I followed the route to Constantinople. There it pleased Adonai in his divine wisdom to test my patience with a long, tiring sickness. For 1.5 years I lay sick in bed until Adonai gave thought to my sadness and by his mercy freed me from fate. Fresh and happy, within 6 weeks I met a Christian German who wanted to sail from Constantinople to Venice. With many words and much money, I attached myself to him and got myself into the boat happily I came across, and went to the brothers, who after a while recognized me through the validating signs. They showed me much good and friendship. They told me that in France and Italy there were some well-known and very wise people of the art I wanted before, and I went home and gave myself to stillness to visit these wise people and observe their art. From Venice, I traveled through Italy's most famous towns. I traveled over the sea to France, most of which I went through. Traveling overland, I journeyed to Rhine in Germany, where on the 12th of Elul 1404, I returned to my father's house in Worms. I arrived because I was under protective cover and in the company of the holy guardian angel of Adonai. Woo! Okay, I think I am going to call it tonight right here. I'm pushing it a little bit with the eye glazing over, and what is it? Didn't I do 2 hours? I gave this. This has been quite a good show. What have we done here? Yeah, almost 2 hours, just under 2 hours. A great live stream. This is perfect. This is good. This is fun. All right, thanks so much for coming in, Nick Oracle. Thank you for sexually harassing me. Made me feel like a champ. Okay. I'm kidding. All right, I will catch you guys later.